Today, we're going to talk about AI, artificial intelligence versus the Quran. It is quite an interesting debate. It is a must to listen to all the conversation. AI chose 10 claims of the Quran and analyzed them, and all of them are quite solid. I'm Cleofe from the Cleofe podcast. Let's move on to the deep dive, but as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to help spread the word. Also, if you like to contribute to our Dawah, spreading Islam all over the globe mission, then hit the join and thanks buttons. Now, Jack and Wilson, we'd love to hear your deep dive.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're opening up something pretty unique, a challenge that stood for centuries. It's maybe the boldest literary dare ever made. We're talking about a core claim from the Quran.
Yeah, it's this ultimate statement of confidence, really. It basically says, look, if this book came from anyone other than God, you, the reader, would find, and I quote, many contradictions within it. The whole argument hinges on this. Find just one solid error, whether it's grammar, logic, science, history, anything. And the entire claim of perfection just collapses. It's like an open invitation for 1,400 years to disprove it.
And people have definitely taken up that invitation over the centuries, vigorously. But now we've got a new tool in the mix, something designed to strip away human bias, historical assumptions, artificial intelligence. So our mission in this deep dive is to look at the results from a modern, impartial test using AI. The AI scanned the Quran specifically looking for those kinds of errors, grammatical, logical, scientific, historical. And we're focusing on the 10 heaviest, most repeated accusations made against it.
Right. And the setup for this test was pretty strict. The AI was tasked with analyzing the entire Quran, surah by surah, verse by verse. It wasn't just looking for word matches or something simple. It was searching for actual inconsistencies, breaks in meaning, logical flaws, real problems. And importantly, the instruction was just to provide raw data on any anomalies it found. No interpretation, just data.
Okay, so let's start with the big picture then, those initial wide-ranging scans.
Yeah.
What happened when they just let the AI loose on the whole text?
Well, they ran it in 3 main phases initially. Phase 1 was purely about hunting for internal contradictions, verses logically clashing with other verses. The result, nothing. The AI reported 0 contradictions found across the entire text.
Wow. Okay, that's a huge claim right there, considering the sheer volume and the age of the text.
It is. So phase 2 then shifted focus to the structure itself. The grammar, the coherence, the rhythm, and again, the AI found no weakness. It reported precise grammar, an intact structure, and interestingly, a flawless internal rhythm. No structural issues detected. Then phase 3 put the text up against modern scientific understanding. The AI's verdict there was that the Quran and contemporary science are, quote, not in clash.
Okay, but here's where the skepticism naturally kicks in, right? Could the AI have been, I don't know, maybe programmed to go easy on a sacred text? Or perhaps it just wasn't sophisticated enough to pick up on subtle theological conflicts?
That's the crucial question, and it's exactly why they used a control group to make sure the method itself was sound. So they took the exact same AI program with the exact same parameters for finding inconsistencies and ran it on another major sacred text, the Bible.
Ah, okay. Yeah. The comparison, what happened then?
The difference was immediate and pretty stark. The AI started flagging contradictions and inconsistencies almost instantly. For instance, take the genealogies of Jesus. The AI flagged the conflicting accounts of Joseph's father. Matthew says Jacob, Luke says Heli. That's a direct contradiction, right? 2 different fathers listed for the same person in parallel accounts.
Right. And what about the creation stories in Genesis? That's another famous point of discussion.
Yep, flag that too. A structural contradiction. Genesis 1 gives one order of creation, plants first, then humans. Genesis 2 presents a different sequence, basically reversing it man first, then plants. The AI identified those as logically irreconcilable if you take them as a single literal sequence.
Okay, so the system definitely works. It's not blind to issues in sacred texts. If there are factual or logical inconsistencies, the AI picks them up.
Exactly. That's the key takeaway from the control test. It also flagged things like Leviticus mentioning rabbits chewing cud, which biology tells us isn't correct, or Genesis calling the moon a light source when we know it reflects light. So the difference in results was really clear. The AI found issues in the comparative text, but none in the Quran, which strongly suggests the testing method itself was valid. And that makes the findings about the Quran quite significant.
That really sets the stage. So now we can dive into the core issues, these 10 specific claims that critics have historically pointed to as proof of error in the Quran. Let's start with accusation number 1. This one attacks basic math, claiming an error in calculating the days of creation.
Right. This is the argument that one part of the Quran says creation took 6 days, but critics claim if you add up the days mentioned in another specific sequence of verses, you get 8.
So how do they get to 8?
Yeah.
And what did the AI find?
Well, the critics make a simple addition error. They take 2 days mentioned for the earth, then add 4 more days mentioned for its preparation, mountains, provisions, and then add 2 days for the heavens. So 2 plus 4 plus 2 equals 8. But the AI, analyzing the Arabic phrasing and in context, found that's not what it says. It describes 2 days for the initial earth creation, then a period of 4 days in total covering the full preparation phase, including those first 2 days, then 2 days for the heavens. So the structure is really 2 days, initial earth, plus the completion over a total of 4 days, earth fully prepared, plus 2 days, heavens. The total mentioned consistently points to 6 days.
So it's a reading comprehension issue, not a math error in the source text itself. The critics are adding sequential blocks incorrectly.
Precisely. The AI confirmed the internal consistency. The narrative timeline is 6 days. The error was external, based on misinterpreting the flow of the description.
Okay, moving from internal math to imagery. Let's tackle one that gets ridiculed a lot. Accusation number 2. This is the verse about an ancient ruler, Dul Qarnayn, finding the sun setting in a spring of muddy water. Critics call this scientifically absurd.
Yeah, this one comes up often, the AI verdict. No contradiction found. The issue boils down to confusing literary description with a literal scientific statement. The verse says he found it setting. It's describing the perception from his viewpoint, where he was, likely at a western edge of land by a large body of murky water. It's not making a statement about the sun's actual physical destination. We do this all the time today, right? We say the sun set or dipped below the horizon. It's observational language.
That makes sense linguistically. But couldn't critics argue that a text claiming perfection shouldn't use language that could be misinterpreted like that? Did the AI consider that ambiguity?
It did, by looking at consistency across the whole text. The AI analysis showed the Quran uses this kind of observational language consistently when describing things from a human, earthly perspective. But when it talks about, say, cosmology or divine actions beyond direct human sight, the language often becomes much more precise, almost technical. So in this case, the AI determined the language was consistent with its own internal rules for observational reporting. It wasn't a logical flaw.
Okay, let's deal with cosmology for accusation number 3. The claim that the Quran says the lowest heaven is decorated with lamps, which are also used as missiles against the devils. That sounds very mythological.
This is a prime example of where ignoring the specific Arabic words leads to misunderstanding. The AI confirmed this. The Arabic word used for missiles here is shuhab. It specifically means flaming projectiles or streaks of fire. Think meteors or shooting stars. Crucially, the Quran uses different, distinct words for stars. Najm or kakab, the sun, shams, and the moon, qamar. Shuhab refers to these transient streaks of light.
So it's not saying actual stars, like our sun, are being thrown. It's describing meteors.
Exactly. It's a visual description of meteors, those blazing streaks appearing in the lower atmosphere. It actually aligns well with what we see. The AI found it consistent.
All right, back down to earth for accusation number 4. The claim that the Quran calls mountains pegs or stakes holding the earth, supposedly repeating ancient myths and contradicting geology.
Yeah, the mountains as pegs idea. The AI found this one is actually supported, not contradicted, by modern geology. The Arabic word autad translates to pegs, stakes, stabilizers. And modern geology shows that mountains aren't just surface features. They have deep roots extending way down into the Earth's crust. Sometimes these roots are many times deeper than the mountain is high, and functionally, they act like stabilizers for the Earth's crust, helping anchor the tectonic plates.
So the description pegs actually fits their geological function, stabilizing the crust, even though people couldn't have known about those deep roots back then.
That's right. It's a functional description that turned out to be remarkably accurate scientifically.
We're halfway through the Big 10 accusations now, and there's definitely a pattern emerging, isn't there? It seems like in each case, the alleged error isn't in the text itself, but in how it's being read or translated by critics. Semantic slips, ignoring context.
That's exactly what the AI analysis highlights. The perceived contradictions seem to consistently stem from external factors, misinterpretations, taking things out of context, poor translations rather than internal flaws within the Quranic text itself.
Okay, let's push on. Accusation number 5 takes us into biology, specifically embryology. The claim is the Quran makes a mistake by calling the embryo a clot of blood.
Right, the alaka stage. The AI analysis showed this accusation hinges on a limited translation. The Arabic word alaka does have clot of blood as one possible meaning, but its primary and more fitting meaning in this context is something that clings, or a leech-like substance. This accurately describes the embryo implanting, clinging to the uterine wall.
Okay, something that clings. And what about the stage described after that?
The next stage mentioned is mugga, which means a chewed-like lump, or something chewed. Visually, this matches the appearance of the developing embryo remarkably well, with its somites forming ridges, making it look sort of curled and, well, chewed. The sequence described clinging, then chewed lump is surprisingly accurate.
And how did this compare to what was generally understood about embryology back in the 7th century, just to give us context?
Well, the prevailing views then, mostly from Greek sources like Hippocrates or Galen, were quite different. They often involved ideas like preformed miniature humans or theories based on coagulation of menstrual blood, often quite vague or just incorrect compared to the specific stages described in the Quran. The AI noted that the Quran's description was significantly more accurate than the dominant scientific ideas of its time.
Fascinating. Okay, next up is accusation number 6, dealing with time itself. The apparent contradiction between one verse saying a day with God is like 1,000 human years and another saying it's like 50,000 years.
Yes, the divine time question. The AI found no contradiction here because the two verses are clearly talking about different things, different contexts. The 1,000-year comparison is presented as a general analogy, helping humans grasp the vastness of divine time relative to our experience. The 50,000-year measure is specifically stated to be the duration of one particular event, the Day of Judgment. A unique, immense timescale for a unique event.
So it's like saying a regular workday is 8 hours, but a specific project deadline involves a 72-hour marathon session.
Yeah.
Different contexts, different scales, and it touches on relativity, doesn't it?
Exactly. It frames time not as some universal constant, but as relative to the context and the observer, or in this case, relative to divine reality versus human reality. The AI flagged it as consistent within its own framework.
Moving into morality and justice with accusation number 7. The apparent conflict between verses stating no soul bears the burden of another, yet other verses suggesting some people will carry burdens for those they misled.
The AI analyzed this as a misunderstanding of responsibility versus consequence distribution. The core principle holds. Every individual soul is responsible for its own actions. That's absolute. However, the verses about carrying others' burdens relate to those in positions of influence, leaders, teachers, anyone who actively misleads others. They bear their own sin of misleading, plus an additional share or weight, reflecting the amplified negative impact of their actions on others. It's not that the follower's guilt is transferred, it's that the misleader's own guilt is magnified because they caused others to stray.
So it's about accountability for one's influence, not a contradiction in the fundamental principle of individual responsibility.
Precisely. Consistent justice, just applied appropriately to different levels of impact.
Okay, accusation number 8, Noah's flood. Critics often claim the Quran describes a global flood wiping out all life, which geology doesn't support.
The AI analysis focused purely on the language used in the text. What does it actually say? Consistently, the Quranic narrative refers to Noah's people, his community, his nation. The destruction is framed around those who rejected his message in that specific community. This points clearly towards a massive, devastating regional flood, not necessarily a global one covering the entire planet. And large regional floods are something archaeology does find evidence for in places like Mesopotamia.
So the text itself limits the scope, even if later traditions sometimes expanded it.
Exactly. The text specifies his people.
All right, let's move to accusation number 9. This one is historical and quite specific. The verse in Surah 10 that claims Allah would preserve the body of the Pharaoh who pursued Moses and drowned, preserving it as a sign. Critics mocked this for centuries. How could a drowned body be preserved?
Yes, Surah 10, verse 92. It makes a very specific, falsifiable prediction. Pharaoh's body would be saved as a sign. For ages, this seemed impossible. But the AI cross-referenced this with historical and archaeological findings. And it aligns perfectly with the discovery in 1881 of the mummy believed to be Ramses II, the pharaoh often associated with the Exodus story. His body was remarkably preserved.
And wasn't there forensic evidence related to drowning?
That's the crucial part. Yes, forensic analysis of the mummy found traces of salt, consistent with death by drowning in salt water. So the very thing mocked as impossible, the preservation of a drowned pharaoh's body as a sign, was confirmed centuries later. The AI found the hearse, validated by physical evidence.
Amazing. Okay, last one. Accusation number 10. The big philosophical clash between free will and destiny. How can verses say Allah guides whom he wills, while others say, whoever wills, let him believe? Seems like a direct conflict.
The AI analyzed this as representing two different levels or perspectives, both presented consistently within the text. No logical contradiction was found. One perspective is from the divine level, Allah's ultimate sovereignty, his knowledge encompassing everything, his will underlying all outcomes, destiny, if you will. The other perspective is from the human level, our experienced reality of choice and responsibility. Whoever wills, let him believe, affirms that humans have the genuine capacity to choose. The text presents both realities, divine decree and human free will, as coexisting truths operating on different planes. Humans experience choice, even if God knows the outcome.
So we've gone through the 10 heaviest accusations, the ones critics have leaned on the most. And in every single instance, the AI analysis concluded the contradiction wasn't internal to the text, but resulted from misreading, mistranslation, or ignoring context.
That's right. Looking at the whole data set from the AI, that pattern becomes crystal clear. The historical claims of error consistently fall into a few categories. Critics twisting translations, taking verses out of context, applying shallow readings that ignore literary style, or simply repeating old accusations long after linguistic or scientific evidence has already addressed them.
The unavoidable bottom line seems to be, this impartial AI test, checking language, logic, history, and science, found no actual contradictions or errors within the Quran itself. And the contrast was sharp when the same exact test did find issues in the comparative text.
Exactly. The Quran's central claim that it's free from such errors was put to arguably the most objective test possible in our time, the age of AI. And according to this analysis, the text held up. Its structure and content remain consistent. And you have to remember, it's unique for a text to even make such an audacious, testable claim of perfection in the first place.
Which brings us to our final thought for you, the listener. It takes incredible confidence, or perhaps something else, to stake your entire credibility on the absolute absence of even a single error, and then invite the world to find one for 14 centuries. That challenge, that invitation, is still open.
It really is. If you think you know of a genuine contradiction, something the AI missed, maybe the challenge laid down by the text itself is straightforward. Bring it forward. Test it rigorously against the original language, the context, the science, because the evidence we've discussed today, measured by impartial AI, suggests that the claim of perfection made all those centuries ago still stands, open for examination right now.
Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. I hope you've gained some valuable insights. If you're a truth seeker, yearning for divine light and ready to step out of darkness, now is your moment. The truth is that Allah is the one and only creator of the universe. He has sent over 124,000 messengers and prophets to guide humanity, starting with Adam and culminating with the final messenger, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them all. If you resonate with this message, you might be ready to embrace Islam. Simply recite the Shahada, the Islamic declaration of faith. For further support, feel free to join our WhatsApp group. You can send us a private message there. The link is in the video description. Don't wait until it's too late. We look forward to connecting with you soon.